On Palm Sunday, when the people are looking onto this parade and they do not know what's going on, they are asking each other, who is this? Who is Jesus? Who is this? And invite you to think about, who is this Jesus for you? Who is this Jesus for all of us? Who is this Jesus for the world? Let me set the scene. Passover was the greatest of the three feasts in Israel that people celebrated by coming to Jerusalem. This was a pilgrimage. So Passover, Sukkot, and Shavuot, they were the three feasts to which Jesus also came to Jerusalem. And they were the great celebrations. So if something was going on in Jerusalem, it would happen around these feasts. And why Jerusalem? Jerusalem was the holy city. In the holy city stood the temple, and you could sacrifice during those times only in the temple. And the temple was a visible reminder of God's presence right here and right now on earth with them. So you want to feel close to God, you want to worship God, you want to offer yourself, you come to Jerusalem on Passover. Now, Passover has an extra touch to it. Passover is the great feast of freedom. It reminds people that God set them free from slavery from Egypt. All the oppression, all the frustration, all the... God set them free and gave them the promised land. Never did the people of Israel forget that oppression. Now, the new oppressors were the Romans in town. The Roman Empire, Caesar in Rome, and Caesar's delegate, the governor Pontius Pilate. So they were the oppressors, and can you see when the Jewish people remembered the Feast of Freedom, that there was a deep longing in their hearts to be set free from the Romans as well? So you can imagine that it was treacherous territory, and the Romans were all on guard on Passover, that no revolt, no uprising, no whatever demonstration would go on in Jerusalem during the Feast of Passover. So, Feast of Freedom for the Jewish people and for the Romans in charge, trying to keep the Roman peace. And if someone stands up too tall, they would be eliminated or getting them out of the picture. So, right before Passover, the governor, Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, would come from the city where he lived. He didn't like Jerusalem. It was too crowded, too busy, and too hot there. So they had a residence by the beach, by the shore. So Pontius Pilate, right before Passover, he would put his military parade up, would mount a stallion, a horse, a symbol of power, and would come with the legion, the Roman legion, and would come and enter Jerusalem, make sure the demonstration of power was right there and everyone was pretty much intimidated. So in this situation, Jesus is planning a counter procession. Isn't that interesting? He's putting out a parade. It's almost like counter what empire military power stands for. And he sends its disciples and says, bring me a donkey, bring me a colt. And then he mounts the colt. And what's the difference in between a donkey and a horse? or a stallion? Well, a donkey is a humble animal. And the whole understanding from Zechariah, from the quotes that Matthew picks up, is it's a humble animal that carries burdens, that is not haughty and mighty and military power, but Jesus comes as a servant, as a king of compassion, as a caring one, who lifts up a better way. A better way is possible than the Roman occupation, the way of power for Jesus. So he's coming in, the people welcome him, his procession from the east side of the city, Pontius Pilate was come from the west side, so very different perspectives on that. What makes this procession unique? The Jesus, the Palm Sunday procession. Well, I mentioned the donkey. I mentioned it as a donkey as an animal of humble origin, an animal that carries a burden, an animal that is of service. And that describes and qualifies who Jesus is. He's a servant leader. It's not about him and his power, his mightiness, his military force. No, he comes as a humble servant, a servant who cares, who has compassion. Now put that against the understanding that we hear and heard that empathy is one of the great weaknesses of Western civilization. Can you see the difference? Someone who comes, who cares, who is with the people, with the downtrodden, with the outsiders, the lonely, the lost. He shows he has a big heart. He has a heart. Who is this Jesus? That's what the people are asking. Who is this Jesus for you? Can you see the difference of this Jesus riding a donkey versus the military power of the empire? And when the people are asking, who is Jesus? Some in the crowd are saying, the prophet from Nazareth. Prophet. The whole Jewish scripture, whole Hebrew Bible is talking about prophets, and the main message of the prophets is care for those who are less fortunate and hold up the mirror to those who are in power, who do not do justice and fairness and compassion. It's almost like you can sum up the whole prophetic wisdom and ministry and focus and message into do justice, love kindness, or have a heart, have compassion, and walk humbly. Walking humbly, Jesus has that in a donkey, by the parade with the donkey. The kindness, the compassion, he has it as having a heart, caring for those who are suffering, and do justice well, do what is right. Do what is right for all people, and not for the few. Jesus is standing in this long line of prophets, and John the Baptist was a prophet too, the last prophet before the prophet Jesus. And how did John end up when he raised up the mirror? Well, John the Baptist was gone. So, who is this Jesus who is coming and who wants to come to every one of us and who invites us to follow him? Do we participate in his parade, in his counter parade, in his protest? Do we participate in that? And how do we do that? To get a better understanding of who this Jesus is, we cannot stay only on Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday. What if we look a little bit into Holy Week, what that includes and what that teaches us about Jesus? Well, Holy Week, Jesus gathered with his friends, with his disciples, and what does he do? He washes their feet. Humble service, hands-on service, kneeling down, being of service. That is who Jesus is. When they observe Passover, the final communion, he takes the bread, he takes the cup, and he reinterprets it as self-giving love. I give myself to you. Self-giving love. That is what Jesus stands for. And when Jesus is crucified, he says, God forgive them, for they have no idea what they're doing. Forgiveness is at the heart of who Jesus is. So, who is this Jesus? What does Jesus stand for? And what do you stand for? Jesus processes in as King of Peace, as the one who witnesses and the one who demonstrates that the power of love is the way of God versus the love of power that he holds up the mirror to. Who is this Jesus? Whom are you expecting during this Holy Week? And how will you follow this Jesus?